People always say, who's gonna wear that whenever they see weird runway shows? But what most people don't realize is that runway shows are more of a marketing expense than anything else. Big brands don't necessarily manufacture and sell all their runway pieces. In fact, what they sell in store or online is often very different from the weird you see on the catwalk. I went to a luxury department store to show you what these luxury brands are actually selling, and in some cases it's quite surprising and even disappointing. Let's start with Prada. Here's what they showed on their runway for their Spring/Summer 2025 collection. It has a somewhat esoteric inspiration. It's a hodgepodge in terms of silhouette, color, and the eras and trends it's referencing, and frankly, a lot of it is kind of ugly. Like, there are a lot of wearable pieces on their own, but the way they're styled is, in my opinion, kind of unappealing, and I'm sure that was intentional. But if we look at the little Prada store here, there's really nothing earth-shattering about anything they're selling. They have puffer coats, hoodies, suiting, and little jackets. You know, very wearable, somewhat boring pieces that are not really any different from anything you'd find anywhere else. And they certainly have nothing to do with the runway show. Granted, I was in the store in December 2024, so Prada's Spring 2025 collection probably won't be out for another couple weeks, so it's normal that what's in the store doesn't really resemble what was on the runway. But still, it's very basic, and same with their website. Now, this one's totally crazy to me. There's this brand called Loewe, which is known for their avant-garde designs and quirky runway shows. And some of that quirkiness kind of shows through in their store offerings, like this bauble shirt, for instance, and these interesting bags. But then they have stuff like this. This is a basic long sleeve t-shirt. It's made out of a modal spandex blend, which is not an expensive or exciting fabric. It's overlocked on the inside, so that's about the cheapest and most basic construction technique they could have chosen. And it costs $300. This is the kind of thing that makes it hard to defend luxury brands because there is absolutely no reason that this thing needed to cost $300. If it were silk or a fine wool, that would be different, but some of these companies really are playing us out here by overlocking a couple pieces of modal fabric together and selling it for $300. Now, some brands do regularly put out runway pieces in the store. Oscar de la Renta is a good example of this. I literally have seen several of these dresses or very similar styles on their pre-spring 2025 catwalk, whatever pre-spring is. You know, the fashion calendar is kind of weird. Some brands like Dolce & Gabbana don't necessarily put all their runway pieces in the store. However, when you see the pieces that they are selling, they certainly harken back to the overall aesthetic and image and sometimes prints or silhouettes that they have in the runway. These florals are a good example because we've seen this print in several of their past shows. They're also selling this $4,000 tinsely tweed jacket, which is certainly reminiscent of the overall kind of kitschy and, dare I say, even trashy aesthetic that they kind of flirt with. As an aside, I do not know why this thing costs $4,000. The only thing I can possibly think of is if somebody was weaving it by hand with one of those cool old looms. Now, I don't really know anything about weaving, but something tells me that that was probably not the case. And this fabric is a whole cluster of different fibers, most of which are not particularly luxurious, so unless there was some significant handwork involved in this jacket, which maybe there is and I just missed it, then I really don't see why it's so expensive. But the biggest thing that I want to let you guys in on is that a lot of the time, clothing is not what's making these companies money. Like, say you go into a high-end department store, or like any department store actually really, and what's the first thing you usually see? It's usually not clothing. It's usually makeup, perfume, like a literal sea of makeup counters. Bags, shoes, and other accessories are usually not far away. In fact, at the department store I was at, which is Holt Renfrew in Toronto, Chanel and Dior, two titans of the luxury industry, were not selling clothing at all. They were primarily selling bags, Chanel was selling sunglasses, and Dior was selling shoes. So to answer the question, who is ever gonna wear that weird stuff on the runway? Well, not too many people, because that's not really what's being sold. Those fashion shows function as a splashy marketing tool to let people know what their brand is about and who their customer is so that you take those feelings with you when you're looking at their other products. Like, I'm a Prada customer. I'm quirky and a little bit intellectual, and that's why I wear loafers. And I'm like kind of low-key cool, but in like a quirky way, so that's why my loafers have these massive soles on them that look like a giant truck on your foot. You see what I mean? I'm not saying that people who shop at Prada actually think or talk like that, but it's about the storytelling. And runway shows are just one tool to tell the story of who that brand is and convince you to fork over a bunch of money for stuff that wouldn't necessarily necessarily be particularly special without the power of that storytelling. Anyway, that's all for today. I had so much fun making this video. I love talking about clothes, so if you do too, stick around and watch another. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.